What's up, guys? David Land here. My very sunburned face is about to drop some red pills about the Indianapolis 500. Now, a lot of you probably already know some of my picks for the race, and I'll list them right now. I think in terms of the drivers who can overtake in traffic, which is going to be a huge key in this race, and the drivers who look very hungry for an Indianapolis 500 win, I think you have to look at Marco Andretti. Yes, I am aware it's always Marco's year, and it's never Marco's year, but he looks very strong this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into victory lane, at least statistically speaking. Helio Castroneves is another one. He's actually my official pick to win the race. I think Helio Castroneves is going to get his fourth Indianapolis 500 win, and I think he's been spurred on quite a bit by the fact that he is no longer a full-time driver, and the fact that, of course, he's going to be very, very hungry to get that fourth win because, again, I don't think he really likes IMSA all that much. Now, the person I said was a dark horse in my starting grid video, and I got a little bit of guff for making him a dark horse, Carlos Munoz. So I won't even say he's a dark horse. I think he's a very solid pick to win this thing. Of course, Andretti Autosport, just like Marco Andretti. Now, I actually spoke to Craig Hampson today, who is the chief engineer on Sebastian Bourdais' car. Ironically enough, he liked my Kmart shirt. He wondered if it was his from back in the day because, of course, he worked on Newman Haas. And what he said is that he's not really particularly convinced that Honda is going to have a real shot in the race. Now, I would say I think they're going to have a better shot than a lot of people are giving them credit for. But if a winner comes from the Honda side of things, I think it's going to come from the Andretti side because, of course, they know how to win the race. They've won 3 of the last 4. Now let's talk about some real dark horses. Some of those drivers that you may think, well, maybe they would win, maybe they wouldn't win, but maybe you don't think of them too much. Well, you're probably thinking of this one quite a bit, in fact. And I think Danica Patrick is going to have a very good day on Sunday. Let me explain. So you may have heard here, and you probably heard here first, by the way, we had the hot take, I think, on one of the live IndyCar Red Pills, where we discussed what this car with the new Universal Aero Kit was going to race like. And I believe, and a few of my friends I believe as well, came to the conclusion that at the front of the pack you're going to have haves and have-nots. You're going to have drivers at the front who can drive very well and can pass, and we'll see the kind of general leapfrog style racing that we're kind of used to with the DW12. But you get 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and on back in the pack, and it's going to be very difficult to overtake. Now, what does that sound like? That sounds like the old IR05 style racing, and even further back to when the Panos was competing against them. Who came up in that era of racing, and who last raced in that era of racing and has never missed or never really, or I guess last point of reference was that style of racing? Danica Patrick. Another thing that I think is going to be another thing in Danica's favor is because it's going to be so hard to overtake, and track position is going to be incredibly important. I can't even stress how important it is going to be in this race. You're going to want to be in the top 6. To get Danica Patrick into the top 6, and I think several other drivers will do this, is I think we're going to see some short pitting. If I'm Danica's race strategist, I'm short pitting her as quickly as possible. Otherwise, to say you would pit before the fuel window or right as the fuel window opens, try to go in before the leaders to open up some strategy calls later in the race. And I think, or I don't think, I know that's how she led both of her Indy 500s in 2005 and 2011. Those were fuel mileage deals. It wasn't Danica drove up through the pack and was able to take the lead. It was Danica is on a different fuel strategy, and she's up front. Now, granted, in 2005, she did take the lead from Dan Weldon, I think twice, but the point remains that I think if Danica is going to win this race, it's going to be because of fuel mileage and track position, and I think this is going to be a fuel mileage and track position race. So let's talk about Ed Carpenter Racing. I think a lot of people are, especially the local sports jocks, the JMVs of the world, are like, Ed Carpenter's going to win this race. No, Ed will probably not win this race. That's probably going to look like a stone-cold take when he wins it on Sunday, but I'll put myself in that coffin and take it like a man. But yeah, I think the Ed Carpenter Racing cars will probably fade. They usually qualify very well, but they'll fade. And again, I'm saying Danica, but again, I'm predicting Danica, if she does well, is going to be on fuel mileage, not on pace. The Ed Carpenter cars always seem to fade. Even J.R. Hildebrand last year, who I think is honestly a better 500 miler driver than Carpenter is, really couldn't do much with the Ed Carpenter cars. He got a penalty last year, and a lot of people thought that kind of kept him from a victory, but he was still only 5th or 6th on the track. So, even when you have a stellar performance in an Ed Carpenter car over 500 miles, you're still probably only going to be 5th or 6th. Let's talk about a few other the favorites. Obviously, the Penske team. I've already talked about Elio Castroneves. I think he's the favorite out of that team. I think if you pick against Elio, I think you're in bad shape. Honestly, I could see Will Power winning this race. I mean, it's going to be the most boring 500 winner ever. I think, I know there's Will Power fans out there, but I've seen him win a couple 500 milers at Pocono, and that's enough for me. You got Simon Pagenaud. Could Simon Pagenaud step up? He's never particularly been the best super speedway racer. Now, he's shown flashes of brilliance. I think specifically Texas 2016, he was quite fast. Indy 2015, he was quite fast, but he hasn't been consistently at the front. So he's starting in the middle of the front row. That hasn't meant a whole lot in the last couple of years, but again, because it's a track position race, it's going to mean a whole lot more to start in those first 10 or 12 positions than it has in years past. And then, of course, there's Joseph Newgarden. Now, Joseph Newgarden's kind of a hit-or-miss driver at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Some years he's on it, some years he's off. 16 he was on it, 17 he was off, so I guess this is an on year. Maybe he'll win. Let's talk about maybe the dark horse of all dark horses, even though a lot of people are picking him, and he's been at the top of the time charts all month long, Tony Kanaan. How interesting and how fun would that be if Tony Kanaan manages to pull off an Indy 500 win, bringing A.J. Foyt back to victory circle for the first time since 1999. I think that would be a fantastic story. There are so many great storylines going into this Indy 500. Now, I've gone on record a few times and said, well, the hype isn't quite what it was last year. Or even the year before, or even the year before that. There were a lot of exciting things in 15. The new aero kits really generated a lot of interest in the series. Then you go on to 16, and it was the 100th running. You had more aero kits. You had a really interesting winner. There was a lot of hype around that. 17, Fernando Alonso. Need I say more? And then, of course, Takuma Sato wins the race, and again, it was a fantastic race, surprise winner, all that great stuff. This year, there haven't been quite as many storylines, despite the fact that you've got Danica Patrick, a new aero kit, a lot of those same elements. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem like the hype's quite as there this year, but they're still predicting that there's going to be a huge crowd there. Again, I'm recording this early, so you'll have to let me know down in the comments. But yeah, this is not going to be as wide open of a race as a lot of people are thinking. And I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed with this race because I think it's going to be a much more old-style Indy 500. Think 2005, think 2011, again, Danica Patrick. But I don't think it's going to be quite 1989 where you only had one car on the lead lap at the finish and the next closest car was out of the race 2 laps down. I don't think it's going to be quite that, but it's going to be the Indy 500. It's going to be the biggest race in the world, and everybody's going to be racing like it's the biggest race in the world. And that usually means that there's some excitement along the way. One more thing, speaking of excitement, there's going to be a lot of crashes in this race. Bank on it. It's going to be very hot. Plus the new aero kits, which are producing a ton of understeer. Again, that's another thing that we kind of observed here on my channel a little bit earlier than everybody else did. Aero push is absolutely enormous on this aero kit, this aero body. Again, this was another thing I talked to Craig Hampson about. He said, my God, we are lacking so much downforce, and everybody is. It's going to be a very wild race. They wish they could add some wickers to the back wing right now. Of course, it's a spec series. They can't do that unless IndyCar mandates it, and they won't at least mandate it until Texas. That's unfortunate. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of cars pushing up into the walls. And if you need a good example of another race that had a lot of that, look at 2011. James Hinchcliffe hit the wall that way. J.R. Hildebrand hit the wall that way on the last lap. The pole sitter Alex Tagliani hit the wall that way. So again, it's going to be a lot of push crashes, a lot of people getting the air taken off of their front wing, going into the turns, and that's where you're going to have a lot of yellow. It's going to be a very slow-paced race. There is some weather predicted. We'll see how it all goes. It's supposed to be one of the hottest 500s in history. I'll try not to get skin cancer. So yeah, that is my entire preview of the Indianapolis 500. Let me know down in the comments what you think, what your predictions are. I think, again, I think it's going to be a race that the local sports jocks say, oh, it's boring. But I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a lot to discuss. We're going to have a lot to discuss here on the IndyCar Red Pill and on my channel, talking about all of the goings-on during the month of May. Sorry that the live shows kind of stopped there. It was very difficult. The live shows were kind of an experiment to begin with. but they'll definitely be something I bring back because they were very, very successful. The fact that you guys were super chatting was absolutely fantastic. The support behind those was awesome. So certainly next Indy 500 month we'll be doing that a lot more, and we'll be doing that a lot more just in general. I want to keep streaming because I think people are really enjoying that. So that is my entire Indy 500 preview. Again, let me know down what you're thinking down in the comments below, and enjoy the Indianapolis 500. If you're not planning on watching and you've gotten 10 minutes into this video, please watch Indy 500. It should be good, even though it's on ABC. Last year for ABC, everybody. Come on, it'll be all right. So leave a like on it, subscribe for more motorsport, IndyCar, and Indy 500 month content, and we'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the 102nd running of the Indy 500.